Let's start today's meeting. We have several topics on agenda. So first one, maybe Andrew, you can talk about the promise-based implementation of requirejs. I don't know, I can share the screen. I just wanted to get some update on what are we doing with it.
Yeah, so that was a pull request logged by Kirill Morozov, which I don't believe he's on the call right now, but there's two pieces of content related to this. There is the open pull request. There's also an open issue. I haven't spent a whole bunch of time looking at the implementation yet, and the reason is primarily because at this point, for me, there's not a clear value add for what we get from this. The thing called out in the pull request was that it provides some performance benefits. I've put in a request for Kirill to provide what those benefits are, to provide some traces. Because if it has a performance impact and we can do it in a backwards compatible way, I'd love to do it. But it doesn't look to me right now like there's a whole bunch of value add for the risk that's involved with it.
Okay, got it. So we then wait from some more input from Kirill, as I understand, and we don't do anything with it from our side. Okay.
Yeah. I believe I have an open question on the performance stuff in the pull request, and then an open question in the open issue on it as well.
Okay. Okay, then next one is from Lena about Sniffs Consolidation.
Yes, hello, I will start. Can you see my screen now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but not so well.
Yeah, it's some strange sound.
What about right now? The same?
A little bit
It's
better.
better.
Much better.
I don't know actually what the problem is. Sorry about that. So let's move to this proposal. The main idea here is that right now we're faced with such problem that we have different approaches for static code check. However, we use same tool. For example, we use PHP Code Sniffer for Magento Marketplace extension validation. As well, we are using PHP Code Sniffer for Magento for static code checks. So the problem is that sometimes developers are confused about what code sniff to use, IDE, how to check their extensions, because sniff have something in common, but there are a lot of differences. And to, for example, Magento Marketplace uses approach with severity, so we assign for each sniff has its own severity. The higher severity is, the strict problem is. So, for example, but in Magento core sniffs, all of the rules lead to failures. So even if just one small code style issue will be found, it will cause build failure. On the other hand, in Magento Marketplace, only severity time issues will cause extension rejection. And the idea here is to consolidate those sniffs and keep them in one repository. So it will be easier for everybody to install, use with some CI/CD tools using IDE. And the solution here is consolidate all of the Magento 2 related sniff under one GitHub repository, create composer package and upload this package to the packages.org. The idea also is to use only one rule set for all of the projects, so do not have separate rule sets, separate I don't know, several specific checks for different Magento-related project, but just assign different severity. So this will be the way how to manipulate with sniffs, how to, for example, specify more stricter rule for Magento core, less strict for extension Magento marketplace extension quality program. Actually, also, I think that here I need to add that for some sniffs that, for some, let's say, static check that require Magento instance or that are a little, let's say, they are dynamic. For example, they require reflection or other specific features. So here the best way is to use a PHP mess detector. And for all other sniffs that can manipulate with tokens only, I think we should use PHP code sniffer. So we need to revisit all of the static tests, and if it's possible, use PHP code sniffer. If not, then change the rule to PHP mess detector. So this is the general overview. If you have any question about this, feel free to ask.
Any concerns, any questions?
Maybe somebody has really any concerns about this consideration.
Okay, if not, I guess we just move on with this project.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next I have a couple items from me, but I wanted to jump into the item about skipping URL generation for products in category and share the screen actually. This is proposed by one of our dev teams, and the problem here is that in case of too many categories and products, when you do like rename, for example, or change a category, it leads to long time updating URL rewrites. So the proposal here is to skip this step at the moment of saving the category and move it to the front end when the URL is processed by the router, and identify the product URL at that point. Not the product URL, but calculate what's the product being requested on the moment of the routing. So I guess we have Anton Kaple on the call and Enrique Sian. You have two different opinions, I guess, about whether we should proceed with this proposal or we should do something different. To this proposal, there is at least one big concern, is that right now, this situation like you see on the screen, when there are same names for a product and category, so they actually will lead to the same URLs generated, and it's hard to distinguish between them. So right now, during save, you will get an error and you will be able to fix it in the admin panel. If we remove URL generation from this step, then this issue will not be discovered, and I'm not sure what will be the behavior with current approach. Probably either a category or a product will be always shown. So that's one of the significant behavioral issues, and another one is a concern with performance, that it may lead to some degradation on the front end. Another approach is to move URL generation to indexer, so it can run in background and do not block admin user. but it also doesn't really save us from this issue, though we may handle it by like fixing the URL when it's generated. So I would expect some input from Anton and Andrei right now with proposal. How do we proceed?
I believe for long-term perspective, we have the same opinion. Both of approaches should live together. The main question here, as for me, that's okay. I never saw a problem caused by amount of records in URL rewrite tables, because this is basically our hashmap table when we have a key, which is our request, and a route, which is our controller. It's hard to imagine situation when amount for rows in this table will cause a performance degradation. At the same time, as soon we will start resolve or rewrite dynamically, we may run in several performance. We may cause several performance degradations caused by effect that we have not only to resolve this road, we have to validate that this product really belongs to this category, and fact that this product can be shown inside of this category, and this is only for routing. Otherwise, we have we will face a problem with URL generation. URL generation for category pages. When a category page has to generate URL for all product listed on this page, due to the fact that we have a dynamic URL resolving, we will have a dynamic URL generation. So technically, we will move all complexity caused by URL generation during persist operation from persist operation to read operation. One for routing operation, and second one for URL generation operation on each product listing site. Also, as I remember, it can be a problem to identify a correct breadcrumb for a product page due to the fact that we have a dynamic origin for our routing. So when product is assigned to several categories, we will have to make an assumption which breadcrumbs we have to show for this particular product at this page. So okay, shortly saying, I believe that both of approaches should live together, because this is a good approach how to resolve temporary rewrites in time when we generate a normal index. But the main way how we are managing routes in our system should be the same. We should to keep a big but pretty simple index, which will be responsible for routing in our system.
Okay, so both approaches, you mean which both? Indexing and the one which is proposed right now? Or
yeah, this fallback mechanism for cases when we have a delay with URL rewrite generation. We can imagine a situation when background URL rewrite generation may take several minutes if some clients will try to access this product by using this URL during this time. We should proceed this request, but this is fallback. This is not a main mechanism for resolving this, because definitely this operation will be more costly than a basic match of rewrite. I believe all of us okay with this.
Andrei, what concerns did you have about reindexing?
Anton, when you say reindexing, what do you mean?
I don't say, I never said reindex word, I believe.
Okay.
I told us as soon we persist let's assume we persisted category. We can assume that our system works in a conventional, consistent way. So technically, we schedule a task to generate URL rewrites.
Okay.
I don't believe that index service is a good approach to resolve such things.
Okay,
But
so
I
you
believe that
propose.
we can generate rewrites in background in a synchronous manner, which is, as for me, is good solution for this.
Okay, and in case we save category and that have conflict with another category, what's the behavior of system?
Can you give me more context? I'm not sure that I understood your
For example, I have category 1 with Slack test and category 2 with Slack test. So
you mean
if
how we
we
will resolve the collisions between rewrites?
yeah.
This is a good question. The same as we are doing right now. At the current moment, we
Actually, we cannot do it right now if you
we
decide to
can
move it.
I will explain to you how we can do this.
Okay.
This will require some changes in user behavior, but I believe this is something that we can discuss with product owner and easily approve, because this is, in my opinion, a good improvement in our UX. So when our system identifies that we have a collision, we can provide the merchant a possibility to resolve such collision by changing URL and by providing information what is the cause of this collision. Because right now, when we are saying that we have a collision between URL rights, the merchant has no idea what the cause of this collision. Merchant just knows that, okay, probably some product or category has the same name. But it is hard to identify what's the original cause. Maybe this is.
I think we show information what it collides with. At least we were fixing it at some point, I think.
I'm not sure, because this is technically not URL right. This is URL key attribute. So this is not exactly the same. And we don't match this rewrite across all possible URL providers.
Okay, so what do you propose? What do you propose? So there is a background process which found the collision. What happens next?
Our background process generate URL rewrites. This will work for most cases. For most cases, all of users. For exceptional cases, when we see a collision, we will use this stagnant mechanism, which is fallback mechanism with dynamic URL resolving for these particular cases only, because this is costly operation, and we will provide to merchant a possibility to see a list of collisions and resolve these collisions manually without generating some.
So we will have a message in admin panel. This is what you mean. Or
we will have a editable grid, even not editable grid, a grid with a list of collisions with possibility to open a corresponding entity, category or product, whatever, and change URL to resolve it.
Okay, but until the customer resolves the issue, system will be in invalid state. Because two categories we have the same URL, and one of this category will not work until customer will know that is there any collision.
Same as this proposed solution, because
this proposed solution have different behavior. Because for first, because it's only affects the case where functionality to show different URL on different category for one product is enabled, but it's disabled for by default, and all other changes for all other conflicts for products, for category, for CMS currently resolve synchronous. So current it and not cause by default any inconsistencies in system.
So
But current
if I understood you correctly, if we will use this solution as a fallback mechanism, we are pretty safe.
yeah.
So
So
this is I don't say that this is bad solution. This is good solution
Okay.
for fallback mechanism, but not for a main mechanism for URL resolving, because it is most costly than original URL resolving. Why we have to move something from a command operation to read operation without any visible reason? Yes, you provide a good reason. If something has a collision, this collision should be resolved in time when merchant have a delay in reaction to it. So this is good solution for such cases. In case we cannot match something, we will try to do this. In case we can match something, we will use the simplest way how to resolve URL rewrite.
Okay, so let's agree on next step. So can we merge these changes and then work on next steps, like introduce new functionality to resolver? Okay, so then I don't have any.
All review comments will be addressed. This pull request can be merged. So, but still, code should be changed in a way to clearly provide the message that this is not a main mechanism to resolve rewrites. This is fallback mechanism. And as we discussed with Daniel, we found some several lines of codes which definitely will cause performance degradation, like a product load and some additional costly checks. Such places have to be redone. As soon as it will be done, I'm okay to merge this pull request as with corresponding to do that. We have a story in our backlog to improve. Not to improve, to complete this story, because this is just a part of solution. This is not a complete solution.
Okay, so you will continue working on the current implementation, the one which is proposed in this document, right? As soon as everything is addressed, all the feedback is addressed, it can be merged, and also a story should be created in the backlog about implementing background URL rewrites generation, and you will work with okay, not you, probably the team will work with product owner to figure out the priority for it, and you also as well, probably, and Anton, you should participate in that. Yep, and the UX, we'll need to figure out what will be the UX for it.
Yeah, and we have a product organization involvement in this. Because this is significant change in behavior, we will have to update our user guides. By the way, yep, I missed this point. We will have to update user guides to reflect this change. We will have to update our performance measurement test, because we introduce a new scenario for URL resolving, which should be covered with the performance acceptance test to make sure that future changes will not introduce a degradation in this scenario. Yep. As soon as all of this will be done, we will be able to merge this. This is not a big deal to merge this in scope of backward compatibility. The main problem is that this is a significant change in application behavior, which should be properly documented and properly communicated.
So are you talking about current solution or about the next story?
Even current solution. Even current solution, this is a significant change in URL rewrite.
Yeah. For the current solution, do you also have? Does the team also do some performance measurements?
As I know, this is manual performance measurements, but we need to change our performance acceptance tests to cover this scenario as well.
So you need to make sure that they have performance and load testing, some load testing probably, right?
Yes. Guys who are involved in this conversation, do anybody have an opinion in this? Because it's pretty sensitive area. This is URL rewrites.
Actually, Anton, you know that this solution currently functionality of use category category name in product name is disabled by default, but we still generate URL rewrite for all multiplication category in product and store it in database. So if we enable this functionality, all this record will be removed, and number of record will be less than 10 times the URL rewrite. So actually it should improve the performance.
Yeah, but this is another issue, you know, that's the fact that we are doing redundant URL generation. This is another issue that can be addressed in more.
Yeah, actually, it's main issue that addressed by this story.
Guys, let's
let's
not jump to the other conversation. You can work with product owners to prioritize this issue and create it in the backlog if it's not there yet.
This issue addressed in this solution, I believe. This issue addressed in this solution, I believe.
Okay, I just want to move on. I think we have some kind of plan for this item. Let's move on to next ones. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I have couple topics, and I don't know. You feel free probably to discuss it. I don't know, in any other community places like Slack channel or Twitter or whatever. I agree that it's important issue, but I don't think you have like too many people, like many people from community on this call.
I see at least one. Sergey, are you still with us? Can you help us to communicate this with community? I believe you understood the value of this change. Sergey?
Yeah, I will try, Anton.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so then I have couple topics. So one of them is update to technical guidelines. I was discussing it some time ago. So basically a couple items that I want to add. I didn't receive any feedback for those items specifically. I received feedback for items which are already actually part of our guidelines. So I will move it to a separate pull request to not just delay this one, and I'm going to merge those ones. So the updates that I have is, just to repeat, first one, configuration for the presentation layer must be declared in corresponding application area. This includes events and plugins that customize presentation layer. And then some updates to our new services section that we have. One is domain or business logic must be executed on the service contracts layer, and any customizations to the domain or business logic must be executed on the service contracts layer, and so must be declared in global area of configuration. Any comments here on this? If no comments, I'll just proceed. This pull request is there for some time already, so I think, and I didn't receive any updates, so I will just move on with this one. And another topic that I wanted to discuss is more from organizational perspective and how we use technical guidelines. So I have two questions. One question, right now we have technical guidelines on our DevDocs website, which is and it's different for different Magento versions. So, for example, if you look at basic programming principles, there are some items which are specific to the latest PHP versions, and if you go to Magento 2.1, 2.1, some items are skipped. You can find only one item. So my question is whether it would be better to have just one document, not versioned. We can do it in DevDocs to not version some documents, but instead mark some of the items with specific Magento versions to indicate that, for example, this item is applicable to Magento 2.2 and newer, like 2.2 plus or 2.3 plus, something like that. And possibly we could move probably all coding standards section out of the versioning on the DevDocs. So I think technical visions are not really specific to Magento version. It's our vision, like future vision on the components. That's why I think it makes sense to move. And about coding standards in general, probably they are also not very specific to Magento version. So the question to you, do you think it makes sense, or is it easier to navigate if it's done like it is right now? Any opinions? Or questions? Maybe it's not clear what I mean.
So do you mean to leave everything under DevDocs or to move under like other Magento architecture repository?
No, it will be.
It will be still on DevDocs.
Yeah, it will be still on DevDocs. It just won't be versioned.
For me, it's easy to navigate using this dropdown.
Easier to navigate when?
When using this dropdown.
When it's versioned.
Yeah, because it's really helpful for us, other documentation to navigate by changing Magento version using this dropdown. So the same for technical guidelines.
Okay. Any other opinions?
So the main issue right now is that it's difficult to maintain it up to date.
It's not very difficult. You can maintain it. It shouldn't change so often. For me, one of the issues is that there can be some gaps in the middle of the section, or we will have different numbers for different items. So for example, if in the middle of the section a couple of items are not applicable to some Magento version, then either we have to change enumeration here for that Magento version, or we will have a gap here.
So from my perspective, it is in general better to have just single version because it is vision. It is not documentation for specific version of Magento. It is vision for how you should develop extensions, and this vision changes over time, but at the same time, in most cases, it is applicable for all versions simultaneously. Sometimes we have references to features which exist in, let's say, just latest release, but this is more like an exception. And in most cases, I would say that the vision is the same for all versions.
Okay. Any other opinions?
I wonder if we can select version on the page and maybe have some JavaScript that would hide and show like content that is specific for particular version. Oh wait, we'll have problem with enumeration then.
Yes, so I mean, if it's more convenient to use it like it is right now, I don't think this maintenance cost is so high. We can do it. So I was just wondering if it like what is more convenient for you. So for you, it's more convenient when it looks like looks as it is right now, correct?
For me,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I rarely look for documentation for older versions, and I don't know how many people actually do that.
Okay.
I like for technical, it might be more important for other documents, but for technical guidelines, probably less important and for coding standard.
So my plan is to collect more feedback, but for now I don't see the reason to change anything. Okay, then another question. Another question is to the idea is to move guidelines to our repository, architecture repository, where we discuss all the documents. But for the users, it should not change anything. So DevDocs website can just fetch this document from our repository and publish it as it is right now on their website. The question is whether we want to have it in our repository as a source of this documentation, or it doesn't matter and we can discuss it as we discuss it right now, just on these meetings, and still referencing to pull requests in the DevDocs repository. Does it even matter for anybody? Does it work okay as it is right now?
No, not a big problem for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
That it's in a separate repo.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But from the location perspective, it might be better to have it in our repo.
What do you mean?
There's
Because
one
it's related to architecture.
I mean, for us, it would be more convenient because we can control when it's merged, how it should be reviewed, but we also can do it with our tech writers team. We can come to agreements with them, so it shouldn't be a big problem.
having it. Are we talking about having it in two places as well?
So it's not like having them in two places. It will be in one place. It will be in our repository, architecture repository, and DevDocs engine will be fetching it from there. So you will be reading
before
it there.
it gets there, though. Isn't the first version like in Confluence or something, and then we move it to the architecture repository?
What do you mean? Confluence? We don't have it in Confluence right now.
I mean, like with the Tech Vision doc that you had me write, right? Like the first version, the first draft was in Confluence.
It's because you were writing it there, but it's not necessary to be there.
No, that's good. I don't want to, yeah, because converting it from that to Markdown is kind of not fun.
It's not necessary right now.
Yeah.
Right now we are writing Tech Visions and updating guidelines in the DevDocs repository.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay. Okay. So I'll probably change nothing right now. It's just some questions that I had. Anything else that you wanted to discuss? I think I went through all the topics, at least requested ones. Anything else? If there is nothing else to discuss, then we are done for today, and we'll have recording shared on YouTube, and I'll put it in the Slack channel as well. Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.